at 9:20, changes in intercultural competency among undergraduate students in elementary education with Mercedes Johnson, Mariah Adams, and Elizabeth Paul. And then at 9:40, we have characteristics of curriculum to promote self-determination skills for students with severe disabilities with Aaron Onemus. Hopefully I pronounced your names correctly. So for the presenters, you'll have about, as you know, 15 minutes to speak and about 5 minutes for Q&A, and I will let you know when you have about 5 minutes left, okay? Okay.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming, especially this early in the morning. My name is Ryan Borges. The title of my research that I was able to conduct alongside Dr. Pachkar, and this was for the McNair Scholar Program, is preparing teacher candidates for diverse classrooms. I'd like to start off by stating that our nation's education system is in a state of crisis. This is especially true for teachers who are working with a diverse student population. What seems to be happening is teachers are going into the field unprepared, and because of that, their students go on to perform poorly on standardized tests. And with these low test scores, schools and districts are receiving less funding, and of course with less funding, schools aren't able to provide the resources their students need to perform well on these tests. And this just becomes a never-ending cycle. However, there haven't been efforts made at the university level to prepare highly qualified teachers. This can be seen through the field experience and diversity training that's offered. Although teachers are still going into the field unprepared and unaware of the realities faced by their students. A possible solution to this, for teacher candidates to broaden their understanding of the effects of poverty on education, is for them to understand and utilize attribution theory in their teaching. What attribution theory explains is how individuals attribute their success and failures, dependent on how they perceive their own abilities. So for individuals that perceive their ability as high, they're going to attribute their success to their ability and efforts, and attribute their failures to a lack of effort. So from the perspective of a student, what this would look like is if a student perceived their ability as high and they were to pass an exam, they're going to attribute them passing to how well they studied and how well they prepared for that exam. Now, if that same student failed that exam, they're going to attribute that to maybe a lack of preparation or simply just not trying. Now, for individuals that perceive their ability as low and have a failure-oriented mindset, they're going to attribute their success to luck and attribute their failure to a lack of ability. So going back to the student perspective, what this would look like is if they were to pass an exam, they're going to attribute that to just luck alone and not contribute that to their own efforts and abilities that went into it. Now, if they were to fail that exam, they're going to have this belief of they're not intelligent enough or capable of passing that exam. What tends to happen when individuals or students are persistent in perceiving their ability as low and having this failure-oriented mindset is they begin to acquire learned helplessness. And this is where an individual believes that their behaviors have no control or no relation to their outcomes. And for students, this is where they could feel a lack of control in their academic success. Kind of a quote that exemplifies this would be, no matter how hard I study, I cannot pass this class. What this demonstrates is the student believes their behavior of studying has no relation to the outcome of the class, which would be passing it. So some literature that I studied on a relationship between teacher and students showed that there is a discrepancy where 84% of teachers are from a white ethnicity, while only half of the student population is white. There also was found to be some culture barriers where 59% of teacher candidates had a superficial understanding of multicultural education. And while field experience is beneficial by providing the appropriate experiences and preparation, they can also reinforce negative stereotypes. So a way that this could potentially occur would be if a teacher candidate, and I hope this would not be the case, but if a teacher candidate had this negative stereotype that, let's say, African Americans were not capable of passing exams. And of course, this would be a false stereotype, but if they had this, and they went into their field experience, and a school did have a large African American population, and most students weren't performing well on exams for some reason, that experience then just reinforces that negative stereotype that they would then carry into their teaching career. So my question is, can engagement in a classroom simulation based on attribution theory influence teacher candidates' awareness of attribution and errors about the educational success or failures of students in poverty? So in other words, can a classroom simulation help teacher candidates understand how to correctly attribute student success and failures and help guide them towards a success-oriented mindset? So for my research, we had 33 teacher candidates from 2 of Dr. Panchakar's Foundation of Education courses. The procedure itself was an interview simulation that allowed teacher candidates to attribute and reflect on their own success and failures, but within this interview simulation. It began by randomly selecting 4 interviewers from Dr. Panchakar's class, and they were removed from the classroom. From there, they were explained that they were going to act as representatives of the school district, and they were provided a series of questions that they would ask and a sequence of how they would either accept or decline participants that they interviewed. So what this would look like, they would have a note card with a series of questions, and in the bottom corner would be a sequence such as 00XX, where zeros are representing that they're going to accept the interviewee, and X's are representing they're going to decline the interviewee. So with 00XX, they're going to accept the first 2 participants, decline the next 2 participants, regardless of the answers that they're receiving. In the meantime, in the classroom, the rest of the participants were explained that they were going to be interviewed by a representative, and at the end they'd either be accepted or declined. So when participants were all either accept or decline, the interview simulation was completed, they had an opportunity to discuss why they believed they were accepted or declined. And a few answers we received for individuals that were accepted, they mentioned that they made good eye contact with the interviewer or provided adequate answers. For participants that were declined, they answered with that they might have appeared nervous or provided inadequate answers. What this demonstrated is that all participants failed to accurately attribute their success and failures in this interview simulation, because none of them attributed it, of course, to the random sequence that was provided to the interviewers. So this just provided an opportunity for participants to realize how easy it can be that we inaccurately attribute our own success and failures, and how the same can be done for our students, or even towards our students. Afterwards, they had a short lecture on attribution theory, and then they were explained that the interview simulation was decided on the random sequence. The way that the interview simulation was measured was through pre- and post-writes. The pre-write occurred before the interview simulation, while the post-write occurred after the short lecture on attribution theory. The way the data was analyzed was these reflections were broken down into themes, and these themes were divided into situational or dispositional factors. So for the pre-writes, participants answered, "What do you know about the effects of poverty on education?" What we found was 60.6% of participants answered this question with situational factors. And this could be answering where students might have a lack of financial resources or dealing with neglect or abuse in their home life. While 39.4% answered this question with both dispositional and situational factors. For dispositional factors, we did find a few participants that answered with students potentially having a lack of motivation or a lack of desire to perform well academically. For the post-writes, participants answered, "How does the attribution theory affect your understanding of the effects of poverty on education?" And with this, we saw that there was a decrease down to 12.5% of participants answering with only situational factors. And there was an increase up to 87.5% of participants that answered with both dispositional and situational factors. But with the dispositional factors, it switched or transferred from blaming the victim of saying the student just lacks motivation to now acknowledging that students may be exhibiting learned helplessness and that teachers should help guide them towards a success-oriented mindset where they can believe that their behaviors and their efforts do correlate to their academic success. So for the results, pre-writes demonstrated that majority of reflections demonstrated a awareness towards situational factors, which should be the case, especially when dealing with students who live in poverty, where the reality is there are environmental barriers that could limit a student's academic success. However, teachers should also acknowledge and be aware of the dispositional psychological effects and help students recognize that their efforts do correlate to their academic success and help gear them away from learned helplessness. Now for the post-writes, reflections demonstrated that there was a heightened awareness, acknowledging both dispositional and situational factors. And this showed where teachers acknowledged that they should help gear students toward a success-oriented mindset and just, again, helping them believe that their efforts will pay off and getting them away from learned helplessness. So some future research that I would be interested in doing off of this experiment I was able to conduct would be if teacher candidates retain, gain, or lose their understanding of attribution theory after they completed their field experience. And this kind of goes back to the literature review in the beginning, mentioning that field experience could potentially reinforce negative stereotypes. So I'd be interested to see how field experience, if it potentially reinforces their understanding of attribution theory, seeing it in a school setting. Also, I'd like to see if results vary depending on teacher candidates' ethnicity and socioeconomic backgrounds, where if there are certain ethnicities or backgrounds that help teacher candidates better understand the realities faced by their students. And as my research, I would like to thank my mentor, Dr. Panchakar, and of course the McNair program and the director, Heather Pickett, who was able to come to this conference with me. So thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for him?
Oh, yes.
So what I've noticed a lot in schools around our area is that there's a really big push for teaching of growth mindset. Do you think that that's like a really great, I really like the idea of pushing that growth mindset, and if you can't do it now, you just can't do it yet. And I just was wondering have you seen this, and if you think that that would be a good way to kind of help that, if you do have students that have that learned helplessness or things like that, or if you think that it would be, I don't know, I was just wondering if you've heard of it and what you think of it.
Honestly, I haven't heard of it, but no, I definitely think that'd be useful, just because the fact is results aren't always immediate. Like sometimes we do gotta wait a while to see progress. And just off of my opinion alone, it would probably with that, maybe it would be beneficial to show any type of progress, even if it isn't like the main goal, but just help students recognize the smaller growths that they're exhibiting, just to kind of help them realize that, their efforts are paying off and they don't think that it's just going to waste. And I think I have another question over there. Yeah.
What was the makeup of the people in the trials? So I'm like female, male, and or do you not have access to that?
See, I didn't really collect data. That would be, I wish I did, but I didn't collect data on that. But I was there for the first interview simulation because there was two separate ones that happened simultaneously. But I believe, honestly, since I don't have a 100% answer, I don't want to give you the wrong answer. So I'm not entirely sure. But I think for male-female ratio, it was about probably most of it were males, and then there were, or most of it were females as opposed to males. All right, thank you.